Hello and welcome to Prairie Pulse. Coming up a little bit later in the show, we'll meet a Western leather artist, Rex Cook. But first, joining me now is Jeff Kolpak, sports writer for WDAY The Forum, but also an author of a new book, COVID Kids, Life During the Global Pandemic. Jeff, thanks for joining us today.
John, thanks for having me again. Good to be back.
Well, you are back again because this is your third book, correct?
Right, correct.
Yeah. Well, before we get started, tell the folks a little bit about yourself and your background, maybe where you're from.
Well, I'm a Fargo kid, born and raised, graduated from Fargo South. It's unbelievable, 40th year reunion coming next summer, but just love the area, love being back here, love covering Division I football. NDSU football has been it's been just a great journey to cover and really document, and it's really been historic in a lot of ways.
Well, we're not here to talk about your other two books. Let's talk about this one. What is this book about, and why did you write it?
Well, I never set off to write my first two books. I was like, I need to write something right now. And just like the other two, this one came to me. I kept a journal during the pandemic, and writers like to write, right, John? We just like to write, and especially when downtime and maybe it's more of a stress reliever than anything. And certainly the pandemic, it was a stressful situation for all involved. And I just started keeping a journal periodically. And over several months, I looked back and went, maybe I got something here. And then I just started working with it and looking back and went back on some stories. And you know, you do books a little bit at a time. You just can't set off and go, okay, here's page 1. And page 240 is going to come here in a little bit. You can't think that way. It's just you got to peck away, and if you have something, great. If you don't, then move on to the next thing.
Yeah, well, you said you started writing journals. I was going to ask you what gave you the idea to write the book.
Right.
You said you thought it came together, but when you started writing the journals, did you have it in your head that maybe this could be a book, or did that come later?
Not really, no. I had no idea. And how that happened was on March 20th, or March 13th, 2020, Friday the 13th, I'll never forget, a group of parents got on a flight in Allegiant. We were on our way to Tucson to watch our sons play junior college baseball in a tournament down there. And when we left Fargo, everything was on, right? We're happy. We're just like pumped up to go south in the winter and get out of the cold weather. And by the time we landed, the tournament was off. And this was during the week when they shut down at a rather alarming rate. But we thought we were going to play, right? And so we land, all of a sudden the tournament is off, and it's like, well, what are we going to do for a week? Some of us went up to Sedona, and again, the gripping nature of the fear was just lightning fast. And within 3-4 days, we were in the Phoenix area just trying to, make a vacation of it somewhat. And I remember going into the hotel, you're afraid to touch a door handle. Mm-hmm. I remember reaching for a disinfecting wipe going into a restaurant, those that were open by then, just trying to open the door with a disinfecting wipe. And really, the nature of the fear, when you remember that, you look back at it and go, wow, this is nuts. And we left Mesa, came back to Fargo. I remember sitting in the airport, and Ken Faircloth, who's the father of one of the kids on the team, we're sitting in the terminal, and he goes, what are you going to do now, Jeff? What are you going to cover? And I just thought, I don't know. Everything's shut down. I'm a sports writer. I cover events. And on the plane ride back, I just thought, what is going on here? And I just took out my laptop, started writing, and that's the start of it.
Yeah. Well, you started the book with the reminiscence of Woodstock '69. Why?
You go, why? Where did that come from? I just looking back at pandemics, and you have the Spanish flu and how that gripped the Americans in 1920. And I looked at the Hong Kong flu, and that came during Woodstock, of all things. There was a little lull during Woodstock, but I went back and I went, wow, we had a music festival during a pandemic, and that would never happen today. I mean, we shut down restaurants and everything. And I thought, I wonder if people knew there was a pandemic. So actually I talked to Jack Zaleski, a former Forum Page editorial editor, and I talked to him about Woodstock. And I go, do you know it was during a pandemic? And he goes, it was? I go, yeah, it was right in the middle of the Hong Kong flu, which statistically is not the COVID-19, but it's close. I mean, they had their issues certainly in 68, 69. And so I think that was interesting comparison in that nobody really cared. Maybe it's because of the instant information, right? Because of the phone. You know, get home, right? They didn't have the kids in Woodstock, the 23-year-olds, didn't have their parents saying, "Get home right now. There's a pandemic going on. I don't want you sick." They didn't have that. It was a different era. So I just found the contrast incredibly interesting.
Yeah. Well, can you tell us maybe about some of the individual people you talked to and how disruptive COVID was to athletics, I guess mainly during the 1920 season?
Right. You know, I'll just go to a couple of my stories.
Sure.
And Morehead High football was, I think, one of the real gripping stories. And they had the best team they'll ever have in 2020, the best football team the school will ever see, Division I prospects, and they didn't get a chance to prove it. The high school league shut down after the section finals and said that's it. Morehead High didn't get a chance to go down to Minneapolis, US Bank, and they were destroying people all year, just killing people. And so talking to Kevin Feeney, the head coach, and what he had to go through and the gripping nature of trying to get these kids to play a season. And you got to remember, Kevin's son was the quarterback, right? So he grew up with these kids. And they always had it in their minds, when they're seniors, nobody's going to beat them. And sure enough, by the time they got to be seniors, nobody was beating them. But they never had a chance to prove that they were the greatest team. And I'll fast forward to Devils Lake girls basketball. And again, one of the best teams, Devils Lake, they're never really that good over the years. Once in a while, they'll be all right. This was their best team in 30 years. These kids grew up together thinking, man, by the time we're seniors, we're going to be really good, John. We're going to be really good. And they got to the Class A tournament, won the opening round, won their semifinal, and that was on a Friday. And I tried to dictate and document and talk to as many people and report on dang near every minute of that semifinal, because they win their semifinal. The girls are just all happy and giddy. We're going to the title. We'll probably win it. Our town is all behind us. This is all we've dreamed about. And 10 minutes later, Rick Flaxbar, through the high school league, reads an announcement and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, the tournament is canceled." And talking to Rick, he goes, "I remember reading that," and he goes, "I'm about to read something that's just going to crush these girls' hearts." And just like that, these girls went from going to the finals to disbelief and I talked to a couple of them later, several months later, and it was still emotional. I don't know if they'll ever really get over that, because again, like Morehead High, they never got a chance to prove that they were worthy of a state title.
Yeah. Well, let's play Monday morning quarterback
Okay.
for a moment. Looking back, could things have been handled differently?
Yeah, I don't think so, because fear is such a crazy thing. How do you? And looking back, and yes, they could have played, right? They could have had no fans, and what we know now, but what we didn't know then about the virus, you just didn't know. So, I mean, when the NCAA shuts down, when the NBA shuts down, it's pretty hard for levels. It's just a domino effect. Looking back, Monday morning quarterback, they should have played. They should have played that state football tournament for Morehead High. They should have played this girls basketball tournament for Devils Lake. But they didn't, because it was just a tidal wave of emotion and fear that just gripped us and killed us. It just did.
Yeah. What impact do you think that all this will have on kids? You talked a little bit about short term, just the disappointment and things, but in the short term, and then the long term effect. Maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the question. Here's the thing about high school, John, is those kids will never get another chance. Whereas the college kids got another year of eligibility. And so maybe, the college kids lost out on a year, and my son being one of them, lost out on a sophomore year of junior college baseball. They played 2 games, season done. He still can play another year if he wants to, but high school you can't. So they're going to have to go on living and wonder. And Morehead was named, mythical high school champions. They have a 2020 on their stadium now as mythical high school state champs. But deep down, they wanted to prove it on the field. That's the nature of athletics. So I think it's going to have a lasting impact as the what-if factor, I don't know what you want to call it. But they're always going to wonder. They're never going to know. Were we the best team in the state?
Yeah.
Don't know.
As you say, everybody wants to prove it on the court or on the field. By and large, what kind of reaction did you get from parents about what all happened?
Yeah, parents, I still don't know if they're, you just got to roll with the punches, I guess. I'm a parent. I'll answer that myself because I'm a parent of a college athlete, and it's an empty feeling. It's an empty feeling because I think they were going to have a pretty good baseball team, Bismarck State, that year, and they had a really tight-knit group, and the parents, we missed out on just a good time, right? The kids missed out on being together and being part of this team, and I don't think you can say just this close after the fact, and we're still in the pandemic, right? We're still in it. That I think it's going to come down the line at some point that it's almost like reality hasn't hit yet. I don't think it has. I don't think reality has hit these kids yet.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about the FCS football season being moved to the spring?
Oh, man.
And what impact that had on the 2021 season that wrapping up now, maybe?
There's a lot in the book from NDSU football and some insight I got there. And if you talk to Matt Entz, he's worried about East Tennessee and the playoffs right now, or whoever comes their way. That's all he's worried about now. But I think when he looks back, he was more worried about the pandemic, his kids. He did everything but coach. Really, he did everything but coach that team in the spring. He's worried about room assignments. You know, these kids had COVID. They have the antibodies. These kids don't. We can't have 4 kids in a room that don't. I mean, that's what they were worried about. Yeah. I don't think he game planned at all. I think it was more about just getting through it somehow. They had kids missing practice left and right. The testing anxiety was off the charts, even with these college kids. Okay, they'd go in on a Wednesday and take the COVID test. They still didn't know if they're playing Saturday. But they take the test on Wednesday, then they start looking at their phone because their results would come through on their phone. And they'd also know, okay, I haven't heard anything. It's Thursday. I haven't got my results back. Am I going to play? I don't know. They're not worried about Northern Iowa. They're not worried about Western Illinois, or they're not worried about UND. They're worried about if they're tested positive and they can play. And that's how out of whack this season was. And so it really wasn't until Friday before I think Entz and the coaching staff knew exactly who they had to play on Saturday. Can you imagine that now? I mean, how do you coach when you don't even know who's going to be on the field?
Exactly. Jeff, we're going to ask you to maybe read a passage from your book, if you would.
Sure. So I dedicated this book to Jim Peterson, who was my college baseball coach and really good mentor to my family and I through the baseball years. And I've known Pete for years, and he unfortunately succumbed to COVID-19. And so I dedicated the book to him. And this is the journal portion of the book. And so April 15th, 2020, Pete died, period. That's it. It's the shortest sentence I've ever written, dang near. Because I wrote it, and what else do you say? You know, when you lose a good friend like that. And I think it's still emotional, you know, for a lot of people, and for me, as you can probably tell, just reading that. April 16th, 2020. The morning was full of conflicting emotions, from reflection to frustration. Wasn't he getting better? Because we thought he was getting better. Wasn't he about to get off the ventilator? How can a virus just reverse course on a path to health and squeeze the life out of somebody? Questions, so many questions. We're not going to bring Pete back.
It's pretty emotional, it can be, just thinking about that, because it's probably affected a lot of people in similar ways.
We're not alone. I mean, it affected so many families. It affected everybody.
Yeah.
It just affected everybody.
Jeff, what did you learn while writing the book that maybe surprised you, or that you maybe didn't know?
Well, I learned that this was probably more emotional than I thought with the people involved. Like, I'll go back to Kevin Feeney. I got with him the following, after the season, right? And we sat down and talked for about an hour and a half. And by the end of that, it was so hard for him to talk about it and review it, that it brought him to tears. It really did. And that surprised me. The Devil's Lake girls, I talked to them on a Zoom. You could tell they were emotional about it. I mean, you're talking after the fact a pretty good time. Usually after a loss or when the season's over, you get over it, right, in a few days. And they obviously weren't over it. I don't know if they'll ever be over it. So I think the emotional toll of it all took a surprise when I went back and talked to the people who were affected.
Jeff, I know some people might think, well, these are just sports, not important in the grand scheme of things with the pandemic. But maybe can you put into words how important it is for kids, parents, and coaches?
Yeah, I don't think this, John, this is so much sports as history. I think when I was writing it, I felt like, wow, you know what? I'm documenting history almost in real time. You know, I'm not going to wait 10 years and look back and research it. I'm going to write it right now as it's happening. And essentially that's what I did with this. And so I think it's more historical in nature. One of my thoughts is like, okay, in 10 years or 15 years, John Harris is hanging out and somebody goes, you know, John, what was COVID-19 like back in 2020? And you say, well, you know what, read Kopach's book. It was kind of like this. And I look back at the Spanish flu and Hong Kong flu, I was kind of looking for that book, like, did somebody write what it was like going through it? And I'm not going to say this is going to be a national historic significance. I just like doing the project for myself. But in a way, I just want to think, well, you know what, maybe this will stand the test of time for close-knit family, friends around here. I just like doing the project. I enjoy doing the project, and we'll see. I mean,
well, it's a new book. It's out, but has there been any reaction though so far?
No, it's too new. I think you know, when you in the newspaper business, when you write a story of something happening, the reaction is immediate. I found in reactions to projects I've done, it takes a little bit, and I don't know what the reaction is going to be. And you know, you put yourself out there as a writer on a daily basis in the newspaper business. Same thing here. Maybe people like it, maybe they don't, but you know what? I enjoy doing the project, so we'll see. You throw yourself out there and let the readers judge for themselves.
Well, we're really just really almost out of time, but third book, but do you see a fourth, or did you ever thought you would write three?
No, I didn't think I'd write one. You know, yeah, those things just sort of happen in front of my eyes. Never say never, but right now, I'm not going to start one tomorrow.
Yeah, okay, so if people would like a copy of this book, where can they go?
Yeah, I got locally Zambros, Mindak Market, West Acres, Ferguson Books. You know, the local artists, it's a local artist kind of thing, and I appreciate those places really supporting the community and not only writers, but artists and craft makers and everybody that puts a hand in those stores. And it's on Amazon.com for everybody across the country. I know you have a lot of viewers across the country, and thanks to the internet and the way
Jeff,
things are today.
We are out of time, but thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, John.
Stay tuned for more. Rex Cook is the very definition of a real cowboy. This 93-year-old rancher, horse trainer, and teacher also excels as a Western leather artist, designing and crafting saddles, belts, and purses.
I cut my decorative cuts like this, see? I push it away from me. The right way to do it is like this. Towards you, and I can't do it that way because I never learned, see? So I push it away.
Rex is a good guy. He's a cowboy. He'd help anybody. If I have something question, I'll run it by. Same deal, he'll run things by me. What would you do in this deal? And he showed me how to carve. Rex is an excellent carver. Rex and I have been in cow deals, horse deals, and he the kind of guy, old-time cowboy, you get it done.
Belts and purses, quite a number of them. And in fact, that's what I made all the time, and I've made that most of the time. And then saddles, and what they call breast collars, I've made several of those. But I always was interested in the leather. When I grew up, occasionally you'd find a cowboy would have what they called a hand-carved saddle, and I couldn't imagine how they could carve it. And I always had a kind of a passion for doing it, and I tried with old leather and tried to carve it, and it didn't turn out very well. And so I got the address of a Montana leather company in Butte, and I just wrote them a letter and said I wanted leather to carve belts and purses and a set of carving tools, and I had no idea what I was getting. And they sent them to me, and I looked them over and kind of decided how they were supposed to work. The job is to cut all the parts so they fit. It's fit on a tree. The tree ordinarily was made out of rawhide, wood covered with rawhide. And then you've got to form the leather, which is wet, and form it to that tree. And you do it by stretching the leather and pressing it into place, or in some cases you've got to put gussets in and sew it. And so that's part of the key, is to make everything fit. And one of the critical parts is the seat of the saddle, which is pretty hard, and some of the cuts you can only make one time, and they've got to fit the first time.
No shortcuts. Part of my deal now with these bronc saddles is the experience I have. It's not rocket science, but riggings have to be square, have to have good trees, good leather. Don't take shortcuts.
Saddles specialize for certain things, and they sit a little different. Cutting horse saddles are a little bit different than a roping saddle. And the seat, it's hard to describe how a good seat is, but it's kind of like sitting in a good chair. It's hard to describe a poor chair from a good one, but there's a difference, and that's the way it is with a saddle. Well, I was born in 1928. My family had always been horse ranchers and raised hundreds of horses. Of course, I was always interested in horses, always wanted to be a cowboy, like everybody grows up wanting to be a cowboy. But I had the advantage because I was right there, so I could, if you wanted to ride, go ahead, and we've got this to do, so I had riding to do. And I broke my first horse to ride I was 12 years old. That's where my ranch was. It had been a ranch site as long as anyone could remember. There was a line camp for some big ranch. I always, after I had the land, I never lived there, but I always had cattle and horses. And then when I was teaching school, I'd go out work in the summertime at pasture cattle and work them out there, and that was a lot of fun. The high school rodeos came along, and they got involved in that. And so my son and daughter are both involved in that. People knew about it, and then they'd want their child to get some help, and they'd come to me. Then from then on, I had kids that I helped. Every year I'd help one or two. From then, with the kids, it gives you, because they learn a little something about riding, and whether it's roping or whether it's working cutting horses.
I asked Rex, I said, how many kids have you helped rope? How many kids have you helped in cutting? He said, I don't know. He didn't know. There's so many of them. He doesn't know. I would say, realistically, he's probably helped 50 kids cut. And even today, he helps those high school kids, or has a horse and high school kids can ride.
I just like to ride. I always like to ride and like to work horses. Something you like to do. So I've got patterns, and what I do with them, see, I cut them out here. This is a technique a lot of them don't use, but I cut them out here, Then when I do it, I just tip this over, and I got the bare leather wet, and I pound it down. That puts the pattern on here. I guess practice, like anything else, it says practice, 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 and you've got to have a little artistic ability to lay out the patterns and make them work. Or you can buy patterns, and then the secret is working this swivel cutter, swivel knife.
Rex, for his age, has been a lot of places, done a lot of things, and still going, and still living that lifestyle. He gets up in the morning, he goes out, feeds his horses, or he goes to his place out in the hills. He don't sit down. He's always going.
I did pretty much what I wanted to do. Like I said, everybody wants to be a cowboy. And you do those things, and I think the Western way of life describes how this country was settled and formed.
Well, that's all we have on Prairie Pulse this week. And as always, thanks for watching.
Funded by the North Dakota Council on the Arts and by the members of Prairie Public.